we did is we stepped back from that committee and formed an internal working group to have a conversation both about the adult support needed to address diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our students and the needs and challenges that they have. So we had part of our team working on how do we elevate the voice of students, how do we understand what issues and challenges they're facing, and that's work that's been ongoing throughout the course of the year. You may recall that before COVID, we had 2 teen town halls, one at Arcadia, one at Saguaro. This year we've had 3 more, and that's in part a product of the work that we've been doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion. The other work has been gathering data to look at what we can see in terms of disproportionality, potentially with respect to discipline. What do we see in the data with respect to academic achievement, and asking some critical questions. We're also gathering additional information before we reconvene a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And part of that is also on pause because it's embedded in our work related to strategic planning. So as we think about our district and where we're going in the future, we serve a diverse student population. We have a less diverse staff, but our students are going to be moving into a world that's very diverse. We want to create learning environments that ensure that our students feel welcome and a sense of belonging, no matter what their racial or ethnic identity is, no matter what their socioeconomic status is, no matter what their gender is. And so all of those things will be incorporated into our visions for the future of Scottsdale Unified School District. And so to the question, do we have a plan? We don't have a plan at this point. We are continuing to gather information and to think strategically about how do we center this conversation around the needs of our students, ensuring that each one of them is supported in their learning and able to achieve their full potential, regardless of any of those social identities that they may have. And then what do we need to do with our adults within our school system to provide the support our students need to be successful?
Great, thank you. I see another question coming in the chat, but I'll ask this as well. So you did mention the strategic plan, and that was actually our next question. What is the timeline for completing the strategic plan and what tasks remain?
So we're still early in the process. We are reviewing draft vision and mission statements. The next step, we meet next Wednesday. We'll move from those drafts to start talking about core values for the district. When we get those 3 put together, you have the launching pad for then building out what are the strategies necessary to help us achieve that vision of our district. So what is it that when you think 10 years into the future, what is it that Scottsdale Unified School District hopes to be? What do we want for our students, and how are we going to go from where we are to that preferred future for the district? So the vision, mission, and values create the anchor and the foundation for building the strategic plan. We expect to have that done before the end of this school year. And then following that, we'll move on to identifying what are the specific strategies that take us from where we are to where we want to be. An intermediate step is, before we identify the strategies, we have to complete the environmental scan to really understand what our current reality is. The planning process itself didn't start by the limitations of our current reality. We want to dream big, then come back to what our current reality looks like and build strategies to help us achieve that aspirational and inspirational vision of the future for our students. I would expect that the strategies themselves are things that would be completed, if not by the end of the first quarter next year, certainly by the end of the calendar year.
Perfect. I think that's helpful to know that full timeline. The question that came in the chat was, what practical changes will come as a result of the adoption of the anti-bullying program approved at last night's board meeting?
So this is an ongoing question and concern, and some of the changes in the policy help ensure that we're thoroughly investigating and documenting any reports of bullying on our campuses. There are parents who've expressed concerns that sometimes a concern might be raised but not fully investigated. What we want to do is make sure that every student in our school system is able to come to school free from fear of bullying or intimidation by any other student on our campus. creating an environment of mutual respect. The JICK policy helps identify how we create those environments and how we respond to accusations when someone may have violated that, created a hostile environment, may have engaged in harassing behavior. When it comes to our response, one of the things I know that happens for parents who are concerned and students who report bullying is that they don't always see what happens to the individual who might have been the bully or the person who was doing the harassing. And we can't always share what the discipline is for other students. But part of our approach as an educational entity is to really look at how do we take every experience that our students have and turn those into meaningful learning environments. So we've been, as a district, looking at restorative practices. How do we help students repair the harm that they cause when they engage in behaviors that are hurtful to someone else? And so while punishment is one thing that people look for, we're really looking at discipline as a way to help students learn from their poor choices and to make better ones in the future while repairing the relationships that have been harmed in the process. So JICK just formalizes some of the processes that are in place for us to follow through on our commitment to create those safe learning environments.
Okay, great. So it looks like one more just came through, or a few. What will be the first charge of the new IT Director of Information?
So the first charge for me, for anyone who's new on the leadership team, is to spend some time talking with our frontline staff to really get to know who our people are, what the issues and challenges are that they perceive. We're in the middle of a number of things in the IT department. As you know, we've deployed pretty rapidly one-to-one technology. And anytime you do that, there can be questions or concerns about safety and security. How do we support our students and our staff as we transition into the new school year? What are the other upgrades that need to be supported? But really the first charge is to spend the time listening and learning, getting to know our people, understand the systems so they can make informed recommendations about next steps to ensure that we're functioning at a high level.
Great. And then just a question of what happened to PBIS?
So we're still supporting PBIS, and I believe Dr. Sakos is on the call as well. And I think this work is led by Shannon Cron, but Dr. Sakos, is there anything you would like to add here?
Sorry about that. I could not unmute fast enough. Absolutely. So PBIS is certainly something that is a research-based practices that we're continuing to try to get staff to support. We're elated that we're able to hire social workers for each of our campuses for next year, as that will be a primary role in them working on establishing behavioral expectations in those research-based interventions. So we have some campuses that have knocked it out of the park for several years, and some that can continue to use refinement, which is okay. So it's definitely a practice we want to continue, and really that blends into our multi-tier systems of support, which covers both the behavioral and the academic. So I could probably talk for an hour on this, but that's the Reader's Digest version, and always happy to present on where we are with multi-tier systems of support at PBIS anytime.
Thank you, Dr. Sakos.
Perfect, thank you. Do you expect any loosening of the COVID-related regulations regarding parents being allowed on campus to volunteer for next school year, the 21-22 school year?
We're hopeful that we can resume activities that are as close to normal as possible when we come back to school in the fall. We're actually hoping to be able to slowly invite parent volunteers back on our campus before the end of May. We're still working out the logistics and details. We want to carefully manage that, but we think every incremental step we can make towards getting to normal is beneficial. And our goal is when we come back in the fall to be a lot more like it was in the fall of 2019 than it was this past year. So that's our plan. And we really hope that nothing changes in the other environment in terms of COVID that would slow that down, but that's the goal.
I think we all hope that. And then there's one more here. Can you talk a little more about the pilot project around giving teachers understanding the technology that kids are using in the classroom or at home? And I'm not sure
I know where that question is coming from, although I know that if I understand the question, there is technology that allows teachers to have some control over when a student's learning remotely. The teacher can see and shut down if a student gets off task and begins to visit some other websites. There's some ability to control that and help keep the student on task and to monitor that behavior. And I believe that that's been piloted. It looks like Bert might be able to give us more on that pilot. Thank you, Bert.
Yeah, I'm part of the pilot. Of course, I don't speak for IT, but it is the same system that we have in the computer labs. That's always been in place. So we are able to connect with the student. That means primarily that you can assist the student, see if they're on task, give them some hints. You can communicate one-on-one. Of course, during COVID, the limitation of having proximity, walking through the classroom was one of the reasons to look into that. It's a different software than we use in the current lab, so that's why we needed to pilot it. And actually, I had some people from Megan Barnash and Bernie Fritz were in my classroom yesterday to identify those students and connect with those students that do not use a Chromebook. So the last thing I would say is that the benefit is that you can also work with the students that are at home. And I can tell already that there's been a number of interventions that would not have been possible. Kids who are kind of waving off and going into la-la land, that you can engage them in the classroom. Of course, the perspective from the student is that they check on me. Well, that's not the purpose, and that's not what we do primarily. It is just teaching practices, and technology helps us with that. I hope that helps.
Appreciate it, Bert. I think it does. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So we just probably have one time for one last question. How can we improve communications from community education?
I would like clarity on what the last part of that means through community education. Are we talking about the department, or are we talking about education?
Yes, from community education. Yeah, from that department. Mm-hmm.
So that's an ongoing effort. The department itself has sort of moved to the Oak Street campus, and they're in the process of retooling. COVID really had a negative impact on community education because a lot of the programs that we would have formerly offered, we weren't able to because of not being able to gather in person. So over the course of this summer and heading into next fall, we are expecting that will ramp up again, and that we'll be able to get more information out to the community and to ensure that we have a really robust and comprehensive set of programs and options for our families.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks all for asking questions in the chat. That was great. And I think we've used up your 15 minutes of time. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I always appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you. And I just want to give my regards to your next presenters. I think it's pretty exciting to be able to.
Oops. I think you just muted yourself on accident. There you go.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Becky and to Carrie, and I appreciate the working relationship that we have with the associations in Scottsdale, and it's nice to be able to celebrate some good news this evening.
Great, thank you very much. All right, and with that, so we welcome the Scottsdale Education Association President, Becky Williams, and the Scottsdale Support Professionals Association President, Carrie Blaker.
Are you ready for us?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Becky Williams, and I'm the president of the Scottsdale Education Association. I have been a parent in Scottsdale since my oldest started kindergarten. He's now a sophomore at Saguaro, and I also have an 8th grader at Mojave. And I also happen to teach at Mojave. I'm a 6th grade teacher in the dual language immersion program. So I teach social studies and science in Spanish. And I've been a member of the Scottsdale Education Association since I started teaching in Scottsdale. And I also have a couple other of our board members here that are gonna help present. So I have Dave, Anna, and Bert, and they're gonna go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we'll start and then Carrie as well, sorry.
Hi, I'm Dave Hanlon. I'm the Vice President of the Scottsdale Education Association. I've been teaching at Hopi Elementary for 27 years. This is my 27th year, and I've been an SEA member for all 27 years.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Anna Patterson. I am the treasurer of SEA, and I'm the site rep at Arcadia High School. And I am in my 21st year at Arcadia High School, and I've been a member of SEA all 21 years I've been in Scottsdale.
Bert?
Hi, Bertdevel. I am a science teacher at Mojave and run a robotics program there. I've been at the district now for just over 12 years. It's a way to avoid to say that this is my 13th year. I've been a member all those years with SCA, and currently I'm a member at large at on the board. I'm running for the AEA Arizona Education Association Director's position.
And Carrie, do you want to introduce yourself? And then we'll start the slides.
Sure, I'm happy to. My name is Carrie Blaker, and I am the Administrative Support Coordinator over at Arcadia High School. I have been there for 9 years, been employed with the district for, I believe, 10 years. I actually started at Mojave as a student when it was K-8. Went to parents kind of, went in two different directions. So went to Fountain Hills. And in those days when you were entering high school, they actually shipped you off to Mesa. So I was at the year where they decided to ship us to Coronado. So I went to Coronado for my high school years. I was a business owner, a local Old Town Scottsdale business owner for 10 years. Started volunteering with my son. So I've been a volunteer for the SUSD for about 12 years. And then I became the PTO president at his school for his high school years. I actually here's some news, in 2010, I was the president-elect of the Scottsdale Parent Council. I don't know if you guys know that. So fast forward Arcadia, and I am the president, and I've only been a member for 1 year, but we're making big strides. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Muted. Yes, I was muted. All right, so we did introductions. We're just going to go through a little bit about what we are and what we do as an association. So we are the Scottsdale Education Association. Membership in the SEA is voluntary, and when we are members, we're members of and we pay dues to Scottsdale Education Association, Arizona Education Association, and the National Education Association. Here in Scottsdale, we represent our bargaining unit in working towards a collaborative agreement with district leadership. And our bargaining unit equals all of the certified staff in SUSD, including classroom and special area teachers, speech and language pathologists, other special education related services, guidance counselors, nurses, social workers, over 1,400 employees. All right.
And thank you. Our purpose, taken from our bylaws, section 1, is to work for the welfare of teachers and children, the advancement of education, and the improvement of instructional opportunities for all. Section 2, to develop and promote the adoption of such ethical practices, personnel policies, and standards of preparation and participation as market profession. And section 3, to develop and promote a continuing program to improve salaries, fringe benefits, working conditions, and instruction through all the possible means, including negotiations with the Board of Trustees. And section 4, to enable members to speak with a common voice on matters pertaining to the teaching profession and to present their individual and common interests before the community, Board of Trustees, and other agencies. Section 5, to hold property and funds and to employ such staff as needed for the attainment of these purposes. Section 6, to promote and protect human and civil rights. Section 7, nothing in this Constitution or in the bylaws shall be construed to prevent the association from pursuing objectives which are consistent with the stated goals of the United Teaching Profession.
Sorry, I can't find my microphone. Oh my gosh.
There you go. So one of my favorite programs is Mythbusters. And we actually use that, in case you don't know it, but science, it's a really good example of doing science. Mythbusters follow those steps in actually to a T. So we use that here. A couple of myths that go around about SCA and unions in general. Members belong to one political party. That is not correct. We can bust that myth here right away. 44% are Democrats, 27% Republican, and 29% as other. Another myth is that the teachers are not living in SUSD boundaries. As an aside, I'm guessing a lot of teachers would love to live in the boundaries, but cannot afford to do that. But that's an aside. 68% of members are still our neighbors, and that is a really powerful thing. I know from experience how important that is to see kids outside of the classroom. Myth, members do not pursue opportunities to grow in their profession. We are lifelong learners, and as a national board certified teacher, I'm proud to say that 53% of our national board certified teachers in Scottsdale are members out of the 91 total in our district. And you can hear our superintendent very often referring to that. It's one of the prides of Scottsdale. We are leading in the state. And we are very much committed to being lifelong learners ourselves. Handing over to the next slide.
All right, so it's important to know why people are members so that we can grow our capacity and recognize the importance and the passion that people have for being a member. I took these two photos off the bulletin board at in the workroom at Arcadia. I'm a member of SEA because I feel strongly about fighting for teacher rights. When decisions which are made without the input of teachers, it is not only disrespectful to teachers, but takes the focus away from the students. We're all in this profession for the love of students and should be focusing on what's best for them instead of spending countless hours fighting for teacher rights. We need to all work together and be a part of SEA to do that. And then this one's mine. I joined SEA at New Teacher Lunch in 2000 and have been a member every day since. My passion for public education lines up with the vision of SEA and AEA and NEA, National Education Association. There's so many forces working against free, public, fair, and accountable education for all children. Accountable is a big word there in this state that I cannot sit by and not be a member of this association of professionals. We all know that there is strength in numbers, and I want to be counted as one person standing up, putting my money where my mouth is, literally, and valuing the work of SEA and AEA. And here are some quotes of why we're members from our leadership in SEA. I've been a member of and aspired to leadership in my local association since the beginning of my teaching career, since I believe that every student deserves to have a qualified, certified education professional in their classroom and in the positions that support classroom instruction. Thank you, support professionals. I want this for my own children, my students, and my students across Arizona. Our purpose is to advocate for the teaching profession, and in doing so, assure excellent learning conditions for all of our students. I am a member because it is important to model effective collaboration and team building for our students. We're educators, we model good practice. I work for students, you work for students, we all work for students, simple as that. I'm a member because my students need more people working for them. SEA is the way to speak for students at the district, state, and federal levels. And then the last one kind of sums it all up. We're strong alone, but we're stronger together. Now, I would like to introduce the next person who's very near and dear to my heart, Carrie Blaker. She's fantastic. She is the amazing, hardworking president of the SSPA. And as on a personal note at Arcadia, she runs that school. So, so I'm happy to introduce her. Go, Carrie.
Don't make me emotional again.
I know.
We've been there. I'm done. I really don't want to read all this to you guys. I am flying solo tonight. You brought a team. Just like the other association, first and foremost, I just want to thank SEA and SAA because this is my first year, of course. If I can give you guys behind the scenes, I really didn't know that there was an association, but I knew that there was a lot of classified. You know, my first part was when I was talking to a parent and I said, oh, but the classifieds have been here, you know, working day in and day out. And he said, who's a classified? So that was my point. That's why I had to join the association, because people really don't know who the classified workers are by that title. So memberships are, yes, voluntary, due-based. We represent about about 9 job families. And of course, they are all listed. They're, you know, even in building services, there's probably about 5 different groups in that section. When it comes to student services, there's about 3 different groups in that section. There are plenty of us, and we serve about half of the district employees. That was the next bullet. I just fast forwarded. We have embraced our positions as a calling. And you know what? It took me to be a part of this association to really, you know, like I mentioned before, I was part of SPC. I was PTO, but being a part of the association, I really had no understanding of how deep in the trenches and how close the classified workers affected the students or were there supporting the students day in, day out. And meeting with them weekly and hearing their stories, I invite you guys to hear their stories because it's amazing what they do and it's very eye-opening. We like to remind everybody that we are full partners in education for students. I'll just finish that because I know I said that last night. The full partners were certified and administration, absolutely. And that's where I go back to saying thank you for the SEA and the SAA, because at the beginning of the year during COVID, I think I remember, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, when the Administrators Association reached out to the SEA wanting to work together, and how great it was to get a phone call from you saying, yeah, but we said we wanted to work with the classified. So the highlight to me this year is the 3 associations deciding to come together for the first time ever. And I think that that's the thing that has been working for us. We advocate for the needs and celebrate accomplishments of all of our job families. We facilitate supportive working environments for all classified staff. We ensure students arrive and remain safe on campus every day. We look to improve professional development opportunities for all classified staff. We are working with all of our job families to update all of the job descriptions and make them competitive with the neighboring districts for attracting and retaining the very best employees.
So I have this next slide up here, and I'll go to in a minute, but I just wanted to reiterate what Carrie said. And I know Dr. Menzel alluded to the partnership with the employee associations and the celebration that we're doing over the board approval of the H policy last night. So I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but we have been working without employee agreements for the past 3 years. And we were able to come together collaboratively, the SAA, SSPA, and the SEA, and to achieve the board finally bringing a policy forward and passing it that recognizes us as employee associations representative of our employee groups, so certified, classified, and administrative. And so it is a celebration, and it is a win for our students, because we know every day we're the closest to our students when we're in our buildings with them, and our working conditions are our students' learning conditions. And so we want to do everything we can to ensure that we have the highest quality educators and education staff in our district. And that's why our associations exist. And that's why we're celebrating this policy from our school board last night and moving forward. Okay, so I get a lot of questions about what parents and the community can do to support the association financially. We are a dues-based association, and it would be really nice if we could say yes to fundraising efforts to help pay our dues and things like that, but it's just not a sustainable model for building capacity in our members. And so we don't fundraise for our dues, but we do have, through Arizona Education Association, you can become a community ally, and you can join as an associate community member. And I think it's a $48 a year membership. And you have access to the AEA Advocate, which is the magazine that goes to our members. And then access to when issues come up that we need community support to rally around, you're first to get all that information and things. So if you want to learn more about that community membership, the link is at the bottom, and I can put it in the chat as well. It's arizonaea.org/join our movement, become community ally, and I'll put the link in the chat. And I think that is our last slide. Oh, yep, for questions. We are ready for questions.
So if anyone has any, feel free to, actually you can unmute yourself or throw it in the chat.
While people are doing that, can I, as you mentioned, being a community member and be able to getting maybe the publication, I don't know if the publication from the NEA, but a highlight for the SSPA is a story was submitted to the National Education Association where they're highlighting the Scottsdale Support Professionals Association for the work that we've been doing with our library aides that were voted and approved last night for a new job title and step advancement, the work that we've done with the district and how positive working relationships and positive advocation and solution-based advocation we worked collaboratively with the district and Dr. Menzel, and it's such a great story and we can't wait to share it with all of you.
So we do have one, Becky. I don't know. Can you read the chat, or do you want me to read it to you?
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, I couldn't find the chat for a moment. There's a question, is there any movement for NEA to assist the SEA and other associations in Arizona to move towards ending right to work for the state? I don't know about the movement towards ending right to work. But I do know that we are, NEA is really focused on Arizona right now because we're kind of a hot seat for democracy at this point in our statehood. And so there's been a lot of focus on Arizona and support coming into the state from the National Education Association. And we have actually both of ours, well, Carrie has an NEA rep working with the SSPA, and we have our own NEA rep working with us just to help organize around building capacity. And obviously it would be easier for associations to exist if we could follow the traditional union model. But I also think there's some value added when we have to work really hard for what we're gaining for our working conditions. So, you know, I don't know. I guess I can't answer to that high level of political platform, but and then the next question I see is, does SEA support politicians and or political parties? And I think that's a great question and a great something that's often misconceived about the association. We do not use any membership dues in any way, shape, or form to pay for anything related to politics or supporting politicians. We do have a separate PAC. It's the AEA fund. And you have to opt into paying towards the AEA fund as a member, and you don't even have to be a member to join the PAC. But that is the anything that's supported candidate-wise is through the AEA fund, which is completely separate from membership dues. But as if you were to join through that associate membership as a community member, you would have access to information from the AEA fund to know what AEA is recommending as far as public education, supportive politicians, and policies. I don't know if that answered that question.
So, any others? Once, going twice. Okay, great. All right, well, thank you very much, Becky and Carrie, and your whole team, Becky, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank
you.
you.
May add one thing that I'm guessing that we have a very informed group of people here, but it still is important to realize that the opportunities of changing the direction of our state, we have they really are in front of us. And I'm not going to take a big political speech, but what a lot of people don't realize is that everything that's happening right now is happening with a 1-seat majority in both the Senate and the House. And that means if you decide to get involved and follow your heart and trying to do something on the state level, there's only 1 seat that needs to flip to change a lot of things. And many people think that what we're hearing, because of sometimes very disappointing news, that must come from a large majority, and it's not. So I encourage you to dive into that, to inform yourself. I do that myself, and I believe I owe it to my students to do what I can on that level as well. It's not higher politics, just simple numbers. So I thought I'd point that out.